Good evening and welcome to the Ferrisburg Planning Commission meeting on Thursday, June 4th. Before I call to order, I just want to make one request. To the commissioners, please be sure to speak into your microphone. There is a tendency as the evening goes on to get farther and farther. People are listening at home. And to members of the audience here tonight, if you wish to speak, please be sure to speak into the microphone so everyone can hear you. Roll call, please.
Chairman Post.
Here.
Commissioner Hawley.
Here.
Commissioner Schulberg. Present. Commissioner DeYoung.
Here.
Commissioner Togo.
Here.
Commissioner Carlson.
Here.
Commissioner Weber.
Here.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
Mr. Chairman, may I make one correction?
Yes.
On number 13, it says discussion and to take action to recommend to the City Council the appointment of blank and blank for terms ending July the 1st, 2029. It should be to recommend to the mayor.
That's correct. Any further corrections or additions? Motion to approve as amended.
So moved. Or
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And then a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting on May 7th, minutes as printed.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. This is the first opportunity for public comment. If you wish to address, there will be further public comments with the public hearings that we have scheduled tonight. But if you wish to address, please come forward and state your name and address and limit your remarks to 3 minutes, please.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Hepp, P.O. Box 85, Ferrisburg. I have been a citizens planner for over 15 years and certified for ZBA. My husband and I own 2 homes in the Inland Overlay, and we strongly oppose the zoning amendments under reconsideration. The proposed changes raise serious concerns regarding process and substance. Changes of this magnitude affecting fundamental property rights require evidence-based and accountable process. It is a serious concern that 6 volunteers serving on the Planning Commission are advancing measures of far-reaching consequences without clearly demonstrated and publicly accounted rationale. When the city exercises its zoning authority, it must do so in a manner that is rational, balanced, and firmly grounded in public health, safety, and welfare. The proposed removal of the Inland Overlay District represents a significant and abrupt departure from existing land use exceptions. It's inconsistent with recent community input and undermines the responsible investment-backed expectations of current property owners. Zoning authority is broad. It is not unlimited. It must not be arbitrary or disconnected from legitimate planning principles. Increased density in an environmentally sensitive overlay area presents real and foreseeable risk, including stormwater challenges, flooding concerns, and degradation of natural resources. These are not speculative impacts. They are predictable consequences that demand careful, data-driven analysis before any such change is adopted. The key question that must be addressed tonight is simple. Are these zoning decisions fair and consistent, or are they being applied unjustly and arbitrarily to a specific neighborhood based on lack of specific research and measurable outcomes, and respect for the property rights of the residents? More specifically, the record must reflect why Harbor Point and South Holiday Hill developments, characterized by substantially larger lots, were excluded from consideration of zoning amendments. These lot sizes are well suited to accommodate smaller homes in the manner that mitigates environmental impact while advancing legitimate public purposes, including the expansion of workforce housing, which creates an attainable pathway for ownership.
Thank you very much. Anyone else at this time?
Good evening. My name is Lonnie Furlow. I'm at 17575 Mary Lane. What I provided, Mayor, is a copy of the minutes from the July 10th, 2025 zoning board meeting, where there was a motion for adding an after-the-fact variance on the property at 17585 Mary Lane. And at that time, the measure or the additions for the property were voted down. But at this time, 11 months later, nothing's been done. The last time we were at a meeting, if you go through these pages here, you can see what was originally provided to the Planning Commission were the accurate measurements that were provided by Brian Klingel on that property. And since then, nothing has been really accomplished. One of the areas at the southeast corner, he committed to turning the area which had hardscape stone converted to grass. What he has done is put sand, compacted sand on that property. And now we've got animals using that for purposes of whatever you can imagine. Plus, if you go through the pictures and what I provided, it's even been used as a parking spot. The main concern was originally was to make sure that property was not going to be used, or that area in that property in the southeast corner was not going to be used for additional parking because the driveway is not that big. So that was our main concern. And you can see that over the last, since I was gone for the winter, we have areas that of people that have parked in there. And actually, Brian's parked there as well on that sand. So we like to see that return to grass at the very least, to grass. And basically, the property itself should be perk tested as committed to by Craig last time we met. Last time we met was in December, so therefore there couldn't be any perk test being done or accurate measurement of the property. We are basically saying that the information that has been provided to Craig and to the city planner, the measurements that were provided were not accurate. You know, what I'd like to see is a third party go out and measure the hardscape to make sure that what he's providing is correct. And even in the last time they provided the measurements, they didn't have the playhouse involved as well. So anyways, I just think at this point in time, after all, you know, we've been put on the defensive basically, not the off, you know, we should be, as tenants on the street currently, should at least give consideration to make sure that he's in compliance. I know there's talk about expanding the hardscape to 40%, but even so, I think we should have that property measured to make sure that the hardscape was within compliance. But at the very least, you know, we should put grass instead of the sand. It's a mess. And Mike Walker can attest to, because I was gone in Florida, that during the wintertime, he was basically running sand into his garage because the sand was overflowing. Yet some of my driveway was undermined by some of the sand that was basically rained out. But you can see it's kind of a mess, so I just want to make sure that, you know, he gives some consideration. And I think Craig, as a enforcer here, I hate to say it, Craig, but really haven't done anything. You know, I know you've had some meetings with Brian and the city planner, but basically the information was provided to you was not accurate. So I think at the very least, let's be fair, go out and measure the property, do the perk test as we discussed, and let us know what the results are. You know, if he's in compliance, he's in compliance. But at least we should do is get that sand turned back to grass. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goes without saying, Craig, you've listened to these comments. Thank you. Anyone else at this time?
Is this thing on? Yeah. Hi. Thanks for letting me talk tonight. I appreciate it. My name is Mark Henson. I don't think my address matters. I'm here to address the issues of the rezoning. And I'm unfortunately not a real smart guy about zoning, and I understand we hired a consultant to do that, which is awesome.
Excuse me, do you live in the city?
Yes, I do. I am a city of Ferrisburg resident.
But you don't want to state your address?
Doesn't matter, because what my point to you here is simply
That's fine, go ahead.
is simply more about the change. Change is a psychological thing everybody goes through. We all go through it every day multiple times. This change has the potential to affect people's money, their livelihood, their kingdom. Every man and woman's home is their kingdom. There's a movie line with that. So what I'm just here to do is to appeal to the board, that are hired officials, that the consultant, as smart as he is, he's not the guy that gets to decide to do. There's no mention to grandfathering in here. So, you know, I'm being a little naive because I maybe haven't been to all of the meetings, and I'm just trying to get caught up, and shame on me for not knowing all of what's going on. But if these decisions moving forward, somebody catastrophically has something happen to their home, and you know, Rebecca brings up some completely different points. She's obviously much more well-informed. I'm not affected by it. But again, that doesn't matter. I could be down the road, right? So all I'm doing is appealing to the board to say the right thing to do through this change would be to grandfather people, make a statement at the Planning Zoning Commission level, make that statement that people are grandfathered, whether they're rebuilding for the catastrophic reasons or they're just rebuilding to the footprint that they have. You can't take money out of somebody's pocket. And if you do, that's the kind of change that moves people to the state of initiation, which is the forming aspect of the change. Then I'd say you got to do a hell of a lot better job of informing, because the real question is why. We don't want to do the why just because we hired a consultant for whatever we paid. We want to do the why because what's in it for me? That's not a radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me? So people are going to ask that question. And so as the board, you kind of hold those cards. And I'm not necessarily affected like some of these other people. That's why I say my address respectfully doesn't matter. People know who I am and maybe know where I live, but it really doesn't matter. I'm not necessarily personally affected by it. I'm simply saying the betterment of all, as the board, you want to get a win out of the deal, say everybody's grandfathered, and then we're going to talk about that in the future, what that means for potential growth and the development thereon. Again, I think the why is the big deal to the affected people. Why are we doing this? Just because somebody that's smarter than me, he's a man just like anybody else, or a woman just like anybody else. We shouldn't do it because of that.
Thank you
okay?
for your
Yeah,
comments.
thank you. Thank you for allowing me to talk, by the way.
So if there's no further comments, there will be comments, opportunities. Sorry? Is there another comment? Okay.
My name is Carol DeWitt, and I live at 531 Ridge. In case in point, I totally agree with the zoning commission as far as changing ours from commercial to low density. However, I'm concerned with the grandfather business because we have a odd-shaped property. It's pie-shaped, being on ridge, and we have 60 feet in the front and only 47 feet in the back of our property. And if we aren't allowed to rebuild on our footprint, we are within 5 feet on the north side of our neighbor, and we're got like a foot on the driveway side to the other side. And if we only have 910 square feet to our house as it is, and if anything should happen to us, our house, would we be allowed to rebuild on the footprint that we have currently? That was my question.
Thank you, Carol.
Nicole Larabelle, 16814 Virginia Avenue, Inland Lake Overlay District. When I started this process, it was to raise awareness for being able to rebuild the same footprint of a non-conforming house. And that was something that was included in our original Inland Lake Overlay District. And I'm happy to see that in the overlay, Mr. Jurosik has proposed doing what City Council has suggested, which is allowing the same footprint to be rebuilt in the overlay. But when Mr. DeWitt made his comment, he said he would like to see this citywide. There's a lot more houses in the overlay that are affected than citywide, but that doesn't mean that other places shouldn't have the same rights that we also enjoy. And if anybody would like to see why this is important, there was a recent Zoning Board of Appeals meeting in Spring Lake Township where a family and their adult daughter in a wheelchair was denied the right to rebuild their house on the same footprint. They did ask for a little bit bigger. They could have approved that variance to, in Spring Lake Township, if you destroy more than half the house, you need to meet all the setbacks. And when you're talking about maybe a 2-story house that a person in a wheelchair couldn't reach the 2nd floor, a ranch becomes a very big deal. And this is about aging in place. We have a lot of older people in our community that maybe they have their bedroom upstairs like I do, you know, and my house is full of stairs. I have mobility issues myself. I've watched people have to leave their homes as a real estate agent because they can't age in place. And if we want more investment in Ferrysburg and we want some of these older homes to turn over from their tax bills that are 50 years old to a brand new tax bill that brings in more revenue for the city, a brand new house on the same footprint, I can't imagine paying that many years for a house to be told your house needs to be smaller because we want it to fit in the zoning ordinance better so that it looks good on paper, so that it looks like it meets all the zoning requirements, you know, and my house being a corner lot, it's up to the zoning administrator who the rear lot line is. If they want to make my rear lot line south, like Craig has said it was before, my house could only be 12 feet wide, which isn't legal to build. You know, he has the power to say, oh, your rear lot line can be on the other side, but that's a decision that's up to him, and that'll be the decision that's up to the new city manager someday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, hello, Commission. My name is Brian Klingel. I am the owner of 17585 Mary Lane. And I did want to just thank you guys for the time you guys have invested into looking broadly into the future of what the city does need to be able to grow and thrive as a municipality that people want to move to. Obviously, I'm a real estate agent in the marketplace, represented multiple customers that are in the districts that we are looking to rezone. So I'm not coming into this meeting or the plethora of meetings that we've hosted regarding this just for my own interest. I'm also looking at the interest of multiple people I've represented and currently represent. I've got a listing currently on Lakeview that is going to be directly affected by this. Conversations with buyers that are coming to look at the property are revolving heavily around what can be done with the property because it is on Lakeview, it's waterfront, and it's currently pretty close to the lot lines. So if this did pass that, you know, you couldn't rebuild, that would directly affect that home greatly, and it also directly affects the value of the home. So, and I do agree with what was just stated that home values are going to be or taxable values are going to be increased as soon as you reconstruct on those sites. So having gone through what I just went through, building in the city of Ferrysburg, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody because of how restrictive it is. I've been blown away at what gets kind of passed or allowed by neighbors that just want to contest what's being constructed. I was just asked by the gentleman that was up here complaining about me to let's take this outside like men. You guys just saw him come from over my right shoulder when I was back there. And that's just, you know, unnecessary at a commission meeting. I mean, we're here to talk broadly, but I'm not hoping to step outside with you, sir. So, oh, okay. Yeah, that's not what I heard. So it's just the harassment that you get, just trying to build a nice home and try to, you know, construct something you're proud of in the city. And I do think that the conversion from 35% to 40% is going to encourage a lot more people to consider Ferrisburg as a place to call home and to retire here. The vast majority of the people that I run into that are looking at sites that are around Ferrisburg in the overlay district, you are looking to convert to something a little more conducive for people to work with. Our retirees looking to come here. And when they come here, they're bringing their money from the east side of the state. And yes, that's not a bad thing. They're blessing our communities, they're blessing our shops, they're blessing our restaurants, and they're also bringing their friends this way. If that scares people that are in this room, I'm sorry, but we're an attractive area and I think we need to attract them. So I'm just kind of coming at this from a different perspective. One, saying thank you, and two, saying don't let somebody that's just trying to build something pretty or nice be harassed just because somebody doesn't want it constructed next to them. And that's all I ask. Thanks.
Thank you, Brian. All right. Seeing no further comments at this time. All right, thank you. So we're moving to public hearing, the first public hearing, agenda item number 6. Connor, are you prepared to read this?
Yeah. 6, public hearing. These properties are proposed to be rezoned from the core commercial zoning district to the R3 medium density residential zoning district. 523 Ridge Avenue, 527 Ridge Avenue, 531 Ridge Avenue, 547 Ridge Avenue, 551 Ridge Avenue, 2 lots, 507 Pine Street, 515 Pine Street, 517 Pine Street, and 521 Pine Street. This change reflects the current residential density and nature of this area rather than the current commercial zoning designation.
As a preliminary matter, I'm going to ask our planning advisor, Dave Jarozik, to address the commission and the public at this time on, excuse me, Craig?
So are you opening the public hearing at this time?
I am opening the public hearing at this time.
Can you state the time, please?
7:23.
Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Would you make a few overview comments for us before we ask for public comment on this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So this is a rezoning of 10 properties from the current core commercial zoning district to the proposed R3 medium density residential zoning district. During our study of this area over the last several months, we determined that these 10 lots are more residential in nature and more appropriate to have a residential zoning designation rather than the current commercial zoning designation. So this would, there have been no changes. This has been re-noticed as part of the council's direction to the entire project be referred back to you for considering some other items. But this particular area has not changed. This is a rezoning to R3. R3 is the most compatible zoning district with the dwellings and the setbacks and lot sizes in this area.
Dave, there was a public comment addressing the question of whether the right to rebuild that is part of the other changes that we will be reviewing. Will those recommendations be before us for just the inland overlay or also these 10 homes?
So concerning reconstruction of a nonconformity, well, the first concern I heard was, is that particular house conforming with the side setbacks or whatever dimensional requirements are applicable? R3 is going to be the most appropriate for that area. The houses in that area are going to be most in line with those. So I think the degree of nonconformity will be the least with this R3 designation. But concerning the rebuilding and reconstruction of nonconforming structures, there's two different aspects to this. One is that there's a new provision in this package that you haven't seen in previous meetings because we added it after the council meeting. That is related to damage after major destruction, a fire, major windstorm hazard type event. So this ordinance does allow for the reconstruction of a building within its current footprint if it's been damaged or destroyed more than 50%. So the only thing it doesn't allow is that if it's over a property line, you can't rebuild it over the property line. You have to draw it back onto your property. So right now, when there's damage to construction, there are still minimum setbacks you have to meet. So for instance, if your house was 3 feet from a property line, when you rebuild, you have to move it back to 5 feet. And so this applies citywide for damage and destruction. Now, the other reconstruction provision is in the current Inland Lake Overlay District. So that's a provision that's only applicable to the Inland Lake Overlay and the proposed R4 district. So in that case, you can voluntarily, at your own will, tear down your house and rebuild it in the same footprint. And again, not over a property line, but it's based on council direction that we've lifted all the current restrictions in ILO so that the R4 district allows for building actually in the same footprint. So it's much more accommodating than the current provision. But to your question though, that voluntary removal of your home and rebuilding in a non-conforming location is only applicable to the area that we currently have as the overlay district and the proposed R4 district. It's not a common zoning tool. I've never seen this in other communities. So it's only applied to this small area because of the number of non-conforming structures and lots. So it was established, this policy many years ago, well, 15 years ago or more, that we treat this area special because of the high number of non-conformities. But to apply it, the question is, should this be applied citywide? And did Councilmember DeWitt want this to be applied citywide? I did not pick that up from the council meeting. At the time of this writing is the voluntary rebuilding in non-conforming location is only applicable to this overlay district now, proposed R4. So it would be a major policy decision with significant impacts to apply it citywide.
Thank you, David. I was going to ask for public comments, but commissioners, do you want to say anything first? Okay. Public comments on this particular public hearing? Seeing none, close this public hearing at 7:38, 7:28. Mr. Mayor, do you care to read the next?
You bet.
Okay. Item 7, public hearing.
You bet. Public hearing, these properties are proposed to be rezoned from the core commercial CC zoning district to the service S zoning district. 17345 Ridge Avenue, 540 Oak Avenue, 530 Oak Avenue, 522 Oak Avenue, 536 Oak Avenue, and Ridge Avenue, 70, property ID number 70-03-16-254-001. It has been recommended that the service zoning district with its allowable uses and intended character is more compatible and appropriate for these lots.
Okay, we're opening this public hearing at 7:29. David, a few brief comments.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, so this is a rezoning of the 6 parcels shown on the screen there. It really absorbs those properties into the service zoning district. Again, since the property is just south of this, we just looked at, we just had the hearing to rezone those to a residential R3 district. So the 6 subject parcels then are then isolated from the rest of the core commercial zoning district. With that, and since we're kind of shrinking the core commercial, and based on the characteristics of those 6 lots, they're more in line with the service zoning district. So this would rezone those from core commercial to service.
Thank you. Would anyone care to address public comment on this public hearing? Seeing none, I think we can, sorry.
Nicole Larabelle, 16814 Virginia Avenue. You're looking at, Pine Street and then Oak Street right here with Miss Lisa's. And just something new for the service district that's never been allowed before, residential apartment buildings. So businesses that are along here, you know, we could see those businesses in the future get torn down for residential apartment buildings that don't have any businesses in them. And, you know, when you're trying to create a walkable downtown, it makes sense to have places for businesses to be. So, you know, we could require in an apartment building, the first floor be a service use instead of just be an apartment building that the only people that are allowed to walk into it are people that live in it. You know, we're trying to create a walkable community. There's something that I think has a negative connotation that Ferrysburg's been called in the past, which is a bedroom community, saying we only have bedrooms for people to go home to after they go work and shop in another community. We have our community growing around us, the Pole Blueberry Fields. This is gonna be the closest downtown to all those new homes that are coming in there that can take the bike path down here. I really think that residents took your survey, your master plan survey, 189 people did, and they said, we want bars, we want restaurants, we want salons, we want repair shops, we want places we can go, floral shops. And, you know, to convert the service and commercial spaces that we do have into all residential uses is not very conducive to a downtown that is focused on residents and bringing people to the area. You know, it would be very, very nice to be able to bike from my house to this downtown, you know, like I used to do when I live in Grand Haven, you know, and Grand Haven has a very nice main street that has plenty of mixed-use buildings on Washington. You know, the Dairy Treat condos are very nice. You know, we see a business on the main floor that people can use. And I think that deleting residential apartment buildings as an allowable use in service would be beneficial, because that's not what we have now. They are not allowed now. And just to add housing when we could add it on the second story, I think it's a much smarter move to get the downtown Ferrysburg that residents said they wanted when they took the master plan survey. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close this public hearing at 7:33. Jordan, you up? Public hearing number 8.
Right. Properties along these streets are proposed to be rezoned from Inland Lake Overlay District, ILO, and RG1 Medium Density Residential to R4 Medium Density Lakefront Cottage Residential. Ruenbauer Street, Reindeer Street, Grand River Avenue, Valley City Avenue, Doric Street, Malta Court, Williams Street, Mary Avenue, Lakeview Avenue, West Spring Lake Road, south of from the bridge to 17420, Carlson Street, Cecilia Lane, Virginia Avenue, both sides, west of 168th Avenue, Virginia Avenue, south side, east of 168th Avenue, West Spring Lake Road, north of from 168th Avenue to Virginia Avenue, 168th Avenue west side from 17657 168th Avenue to West Spring Lake Road, 168th Avenue east side from Virginia Avenue to West Spring Lake Road, West Spring Lake Road, north of from the bridge to Royal Avenue, north of, and Lake Road.
Well done. So we'll call this public hearing to order at 7:34.
Oh, I'm sorry, there's one more that I have to read. Along with this rezoning, dimensional requirements are proposed to be amended to better reflect the existing conditions of lots and buildings throughout the district.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. David, some opening remarks, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So this area currently outlined in red. This is the Inland Lake Overlay District. As mentioned in previous meetings, the Overlay District allows for two things. One, for reduced setbacks for existing lots of record, which a lot of record for the ILO area is a lot that was in its present state in 2009. So any lot that is in the same state as it was in 2009 is subject to two provisions. One is that the setbacks can be reduced in the case that your lot is not wide, meets the width requirement, and your lot is not meeting the area requirement. So there's kind of a proportional decrease in the required setbacks based on your degree of nonconformity. So it's somewhat of a complex calculation. It's misinterpreted from time to time, and it's not very user-friendly in my opinion. The second provision is the reconstruction provision. So we talked about that a little bit before. Right now, you can voluntarily take down your house and rebuild it, in the zoning ordinance says, in the same footprint within this overlay district. That is actually not very accurate because there are restrictions on the front yard and on side yards. And so even if you are you tear it down, you rebuild it, you still have to meet minimum setbacks. And so there are restrictions in place that actually do not allow, in many cases, you to rebuild in the same building footprint. So with that, the two changes to this R4 district that are proposed, first, the setbacks are calibrated to really allow for reasonable development of all properties. I've gone through in that map, there's 315 properties. 115 are boat lots, access parcels, or parcels that split through a one building site. And so if you take that down to 200, 97.5% of the lots in proposed R4 will actually have a larger building envelope, resulting building envelope, based on the lot area, lot coverage of 35 to 40%, that's increasing 5%, as well as the setbacks, which are adjusted. Some are front setback is being reduced. Side setbacks are mainly comparable, off by 1 foot, but it does allow some flexibility to put a 10-foot driveway on one side and 5-foot setback on the other. So that is a scenario you see a lot in this area. And the rear setback is 30 feet, so that's down from 40. But a lot of folks will point out that with the more extreme non-conforming lots are able to reduce their rear setbacks down to 20 feet. So that's mainly going to be lots under 7,500, 7,000 square feet would have allowed setbacks less than 30 feet. So, however, when you look at the setbacks as applied and the lot coverage, still every lot mathematically over 4,200 square feet will actually have a slightly larger building envelope. So there's a lot of comments about how does this affect my property? Does it take away my rights? There's only 7 properties that have a smaller resulting building envelope based on current versus proposed provisions. And even of those 7, 4 of them are going to result in conforming houses. So right now they don't even conform to the setbacks of ILO. So overall, we've been talking about this for a long time. We've actually taken public comments and made improvements to this. R4 is now something that really reflects what's there. The built environment, it respects non-conforming lots, non-conforming dwellings, and allows a very generous rebuilding provision, which is not in the current ordinance. So as mentioned before, you can tear down your house and build it in the exact same footprint. There is no minimum setback at that point. You just have to build the same square foot size house. But the only provision is you can't build over a property line if you're currently over a property. So this is, I think, a win-win. We've taken public comments to heart. We've taken council direction. And I think this is a positive. And if there are still concerns, I can probably satisfy any concern that's brought to us.
Thank you, David. Are there any public comments on this public hearing at this time?
Stu Urbantrout, 16621 Lakeview, Ferrisburg. I don't agree with your talking about you can reconstruct on the same footprint and all. There are limitations that you also put in there, like you have to keep it to the same height, where if you go to section 10.160, it says you can go to 35-foot height. Why are you restricting it? Mr. DeWitt spent a little bit of time using common sense and talking to your consultant about making it black and white, easy language about this R4 that you can rebuild on your footprint, and no restrictions other than you can't go over your lot line. That's common sense. So here you've got a restriction on the height. You've also got a restriction on the damage to a house, that it has to be over 50% damaged before you can reconstruct. What if it's 48%? You can't reconstruct? Then you have to go to the other section 10.160 that says you can demolish your house and you can reconstruct. Now, it doesn't fit together. It doesn't make sense. So I think you need to look at this a little bit closer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else for this public hearing?
Ann Smith. We own 2 properties in the Inland Lakes Overlay District. The one I'm going to talk about is 16576 Malta Court. Our property is a 40 by 100 property. It's 4,000 square feet. The rear accessory building, which has been a garage since the building was constructed, sits literally, I'd say, within a foot of the property line. Our neighbor in front of us, his garage, which is also a detached, sits within. We literally have about 2 feet between the 2 buildings. I do not see where, and this is my question, based on reconstruction, or if we chose to demolish it, which we do not have plans to, but if we were to sell this property, as Mr. Klingel brought up earlier, that is one of the questions that will be asked, is what is the ability to reconstruct, considering all of the neighbors around us are taller than us, have been reconstructed to much larger, have footprints of 3 feet from the property line in many cases. And so I disagree with what you're saying. I made a printout of the number of properties that were originally zoned, and I'm going to pass this around to you so that you can take a look at it. If you look at the original plats in this area, from here to here, there's over 179 houses that were platted between 40 and 50 feet wide. The majority of those houses and those lots still exist. Sunnyside was platted at 50 by 100. 45 of those lots still exist with those dimensions. Branton Gilliland plat was planted with 79 lots. They were planted at 80 by 40, 90 by 40, or 100 by a 40. Fraser and Gilliland, 59 lots. Of those 45 of them, those are platted at 40 by 120, 40 by 125, or 40 by 154. I do not understand how you think that a 60-foot width represents the properties in this area. They're well below, and to say there are only 7 properties in this area, I can walk down around the neighborhood and point out a whole lot more than that are on 4 by 40 by 100. It doesn't make sense to me. Something's missing. I think you guys need to come out and walk the area and see what has been approved. the number of new houses that have gone in around Malta and Doric, and what has been allowed to be constructed in this area compared to what is being proposed, you are reducing our property rights. I have a problem with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Denny Dryer, Dryer Architectural Group, 220 and a half Washington, Grand Haven. I'm not complaining, but I just want to bring up a point that you have 100-foot lots and some of them are very narrow, and you're making us have front-load garages 10 feet deeper than side-load garages. You can't put a side-load garage on a 40 or a 50-foot lot. 60, you won't have a pickup truck and do that. So consider not having a different setback for front load. Don't discriminate. Garage doors are getting better looking all the time. Thank you.
Beauty is in the eye of the garage door beholder. Okay. No further comments on this one. Close this public hearing at 7:47. Item 9, public hearing.
Number 9, public hearing and ordinance to amend the city by amending Chapter 154 zoning to amend provisions related to residential land uses, review processes, and development requirements for residential land uses, as well as other stated matters, and to amend the official zoning map of the city of Ferrisburg.
7:47, we'll open this public hearing. David, would you please give us a little overview of, and I don't know if this is where you want to kind of give the big picture overview or save it for the discussion to follow.
What I might do is, if it's okay, just address the items that were referred back to you from City Council.
Yes.
So all other, well, just to overview, just a big picture is that this is a major zoning reform effort to look at housing in Ferrisburg, to see where we can increase housing supply and where we can adjust housing requirements to cut the red tape to make sure that housing can go in affordably and reasonably. This doesn't open up the floodgates. This ensures that housing that does go in is calibrated appropriately for the areas that we're making changes. In other cases, we're trying to make sure that the zoning requirements match the context of the area that's been designated. So we have various areas throughout the city that have zoning district requirements that really don't match the built environment, so we've made adjustments to be more consistent. But there were a few issues discussed at the council level, and this is why this entire package has been referred back to the Planning Commission. And I can walk through those one by one here on the memo. So number one, we did have a new provision in the ordinance that does not require garage space. So you can build a house and just park your car outside and without a garage. There was a discussion at the council level of whether in that case, should we require some sort of storage? So for lawn equipment, bikes, things like that. So the proposal here is for your consideration. So we have required garage or storage. So in residential districts, all new single unit dwellings and 2-unit dwellings shall have one attached or detached one-car garage per dwelling unit, or at least 100 square feet of attached or detached storage space with exterior access. So again, this is if we do strike the garage requirement, this could allow for some level of storage for lawnmowers and other personal items. So certainly we'll discuss that. The next issue is the reconstruction after restoration, reconstruction and restoration after damage. So as I mentioned before, this applies citywide. This is in section 11.30B. So that's currently section 1030B of the current ordinance. But since we added a chapter, this is now 1130B. And so what this does is, I mentioned before, if your house burns down or is destroyed by hazard within within a time period of that happening, and if it's over the 50% of the value, you can rebuild it without the restrictions that are currently in the ordinance. So this says, notwithstanding the location of the original footprint, the new structure shall not extend beyond lot lines, even if the original footprint extended beyond lot lines onto a abutting lot. So, but it starts by saying that you can rebuild it on the same footprint with the same dimensions. So, what this does is make it more accommodating. So currently, as I mentioned before, a structure can't be any closer than 5 feet from a side property line, and no more than 3 feet from any side or a rear property line if it's a accessory structure. So those provisions are now struck. If there's damage, you can rebuild in the exact same footprint, except if it's over a property line. So that's making things a little bit easier in those crisis type situations.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
And just to reiterate, that is citywide.
Citywide. And so this is in a case of a natural hazard, fire, other type of catastrophe. So you can rebuild in the same footprint, even if you have 0 setbacks and 100% lot coverage, you can rebuild in the same footprint, the same house.
Thank you.
Okay, next then, special land use approval authority. So there was a recommendation from the Planning Commission that council consider delegating all special land use authority or certain special land use authority to the Planning Commission for final approval. City Council felt more comfortable retaining that authority. So number 3 here does affect Section 440, as well as a few other sections in that special land use chapter. So City Council would like the final authority on special land uses. Number 4, the accessory dwelling unit lot coverage exemption. So we included an exemption for detached accessory dwelling units. So if you have it in your rear yard, and if it pushes you over your maximum lot coverage, we put an exemption that it could exceed that if you're trying to retrofit your property with a detached accessory dwelling unit. Council did not agree with that, so that they would like that provision struck. So that's shown in 520U6. Okay, the reconstruction provision. So I want to mention a few things that were mentioned in public comment as well. So the reconstruction provision was added to R4, which is significantly more accommodating than the current provisions in the Inland Lakefront overlay. So this relates to reconstruction after voluntary demolition. And just to clarify again, this only applies to what is the current ILO, which is proposed to be the R4 zoning district. And so what this does is it removes all of the restrictions on your setbacks so that you can actually build within that same building envelope. And this does, currently you can do this on a lot of record. So that's any lot that's been in place since 2009. Those are the lots that are subject to the current ILO provisions. Let's see here. I want to double check okay. So it does say, I wanted to mention the height issue. So may be constructed on the original building footprint with the same height, dimensions, and lot coverage. But I want to touch on the height issue a little bit later as well when we work through this. Okay, next in the service zoning district. So since we are rezoning a few properties as part of this effort, well, the question came up at one of the earlier council meetings that are there any single family dwellings, single unit dwellings in that area now, and what will happen to them? Well, currently they're in the core commercial district. There's a provision that if there's a single unit dwelling, that it's just subject to the requirements for it would be the R5 zoning district. So we added a similar provision here for the service district. We know that there are 1, maybe 2 dwellings in the 6 lot area that's being rezoned. So this would accommodate that, I think, 1 or 2 single unit dwellings. So it says pre-existing single-unit dwellings were subject to the R3 medium-density residential zoning district requirements. So they wouldn't become non-conforming. They would be subject to R3 requirements if there's an existing house there. Then lastly, number 7 would be the front setback for buildings and garages on waterfront lots along Cecilia. We've reduced this, proposing to reduce it to 10 feet across the board, regardless of if it's a garage or the main part of the house. It's just a 10-foot setback. And so that is there to accommodate those lots are obviously very shallow, and the average is around 9 feet or so already. So we're just proposing a 10-foot across the board setback for waterfront lots on Cecilia Lane. So that would certainly address some of the concerns we've heard. There were other items that the council wanted us to discuss, is just the accessory dwelling units, and if we should restrict short-term rentals, and what types of scenarios we would or would not support. And then it was brought up whether or not the 40% lot coverage in R4 was appropriate or should be converted back to 35. And again, I think we talked about the 40% quite a bit. That was based on looking at averages and existing built environment. So I think we were pretty confident when this was forwarded on that 40% was the right number. But again, council did discuss that at their meeting.
Thank you, David. This is a good time to ask for public comment. Any member of the public wish to address the commission on this public hearing?
Nicole Larabelle, 16814 Virginia Avenue. I just want to thank Mayor Carlson for personally inviting me to the meeting tonight and, telling me that my input was appreciated. So thank you very much for that. I just want to reiterate the commercial, the areas in purple on the map. We're talking Lempinks, we're talking iMove, Trillium, those places there that are reserved for businesses, businesses that people in Ferrysburg work at and use, daily. And right now, we don't allow townhouses in commercial zoning districts. And this ordinance would be allowing that for the first time. And what businesses would be better off as townhouses is a question that I'd like to hear discussed, because it hasn't been discussed. We have public comment, but then the public hearing is closed without any discussion. So it doesn't really make us feel like we're being part of the conversation here. But I just wrote in an email to you all earlier today. While adding housing should be a goal of the city, sacrificing existing commercial businesses and changing their zoning to allow townhomes and apartments that do not have businesses in them, and businesses that once served the community, isn't what 189 people surveyed for the master plan update in 2025 wanted. Residents supported more businesses, restaurants, salons, bars, and other types of businesses that help our community grow to be a true walking and biking destination. When I think about apartment buildings, I think about how much parking they take up and how that would not be what we'd want to see downtown in those very rare lots that can support businesses that we could all, have a chance to visit and not have to rely on neighboring communities to provide us the businesses that we need. I mentioned the new bike path that'll be coming from the Pole Blueberry Fields to downtown, and I think a lot of people will be keeping their boats at Keenan Marina and biking down there, And I really think that we have a lot of very cool ways to develop downtown Ferrysburg. We have a terminus at 4th Street to the north of Johnston Boiler there that could be a really cool fishing spot with a pavilion, kind of like they have at Pomona Park in Fruitport. But I think the best way forward to encourage new housing in commercial and service zoning districts is through mixed-use buildings, which are allowed. And to delete from service residential apartment buildings that don't have service uses, and in, you know, core commercial and general commercial, not allow townhouses in those areas, you know, so we can save those businesses for people that want to have a neighborhood that they can walk to instead of an apartment building that only the people that live there can access. You know, it's about accessibility and getting past that label of Ferrysburg, the bedroom community. I think we can do a lot better with our zoning, and we can still add the housing that the state of Michigan would like us to add. That is why we're here, because Ferrysburg did receive a $50,000 grant from the state of Michigan to amend their zoning ordinance to allow the most possible housing on paper to what we're seeing here, which has been the ultimate goal of the city planner, to convince the planning commission and city council that that is the direction for Ferrysburg, what the state wants. And, you know, we had a survey and we had residents tell you that only 26% of people favored large apartment complexes. And now, for the first time, mixed-use buildings and apartment complexes will have no limit on how big they can be. And currently, the biggest apartment building we have in Ferrysburg is Trappers Cove, which is on Cove Street. And that, I believe, is an 8-unit building, Craig said in the meeting. So that's just my take on how we can get a walkable community and businesses to help each other. You know, the more businesses that are downtown, the more people are gonna walk from one to one and they'll support each other. I know back in the day on Washington, the businesses actually used to connect on the inside, and you could walk from one store to one store without even going outside in the winter, and it was a really cool thing that Grand Haven did with their Downtown Development Authority. But thank you for listening to my comments, and I just appreciate a discussion on this matter because we haven't really had a discussion on it yet. So thank you.
Thank you. Close this public hearing at 8:02 p.m. I think we opened it at 7. Please stand up if you wish to be recognized.
Ann Smith, 16576 Malta Court. Back to the reconstruction provision that was gone over. When you went through it, you said there was no limits, but there is a limit on height on the reconstruction when you said that it could be voluntarily demolished, but yet the one restriction that's in here is it has to be the same height of what it currently is. Now, if you were to look at the number of houses that have been voluntarily torn down in the ILO area and reconstructed, multiple houses that have been reconstructed went from a small ranch to a multi 2-3-story house, which ultimately increased the tax base for the city. So I don't understand the rationale for the restriction on height when you have narrow lots. The only thing you can do is go up. So why, when it can increase the tax base, is there a restriction that it has to be built to the existing height if you voluntarily take it down? I also don't understand the setback requirements that are being talked about, because I can go through and I have supported numerous variances that have allowed 3 to 5 feet setbacks, and now we're being told they have to be 5 on one side, 10 on the other, or a combination thereof. Many of the houses right now, the driveway is on the side of the house, and so is that part of the setback? Or does the driveway have to be outside of the setbacks? Because right now, those driveways are right next to the side of the houses, and there are multiple ones that way. So I don't understand trying to draw it out how you can take a 40-foot lot, do a 15 front yard setback, a 5 on one side, 10 on the other, and a 30 on the back. It leaves you 55 feet in the middle with 25 wide to put a house and a garage detached, and I believe you have to have 10 feet in between an existing structure and a detached building, unless that's being removed. Mathematically, I don't know how it works. I've drawn it out. I can't, and if the driveway is part of that is not part of that setback, it doesn't work on a 4,000 square foot lot. And the number of 4,000 square foot lots that are currently in the city, especially in some areas of the city within ILO, where houses could be built, you're discriminating and not allowing them to be built. And you basically, if somebody owns 2 properties together, you're requiring them to be combined together to meet the new requirement, where 2 houses could be built if you allowed for smaller provisions. And if the whole purpose is to increase housing, I don't understand some of the requirements that you're putting in place.
Thank you. I will mention that one of the last concerns you raised will be addressed later in the meeting tonight. So I hope you'll be able to stay with us. No further public comments? Going once, twice, gone. Close this public hearing at 8:07. The next item on our agenda is discussion and to take action, if appropriate, to recommend to City Council to adopt, not adopt, an ordinance to amend the City Code by amending Chapter 154 zoning to amend provisions relating to residential land uses, review processes, and development requirements for residential land uses, as well as other stated matters, and to amend the official zoning map of the City of Ferrysburg. David.
Well, I can answer any outstanding questions or address any concerns.
I'd like to mention a couple questions, and then I want to specifically give the commission chances. Height, I know we want to talk about the height issue, and also the wording, the accessory dwelling units and the 40% max coverage. I think we need to tie that up, so we may need a little direction and discussion on those points. But if you could first, a couple people have said, why can't we go higher in height when some of these situations require a house to be rebuilt? Would you please address that?
My first response would be just develop under the ordinance. R4 allows more room for, of the 200 residential lots, all but 7 allow for a larger building envelope. So if there's any concern, aside from those 7 lots, I mean, we're planning, we've calibrated this to accommodate 97.5% of the lots. Mathematically, the building envelope is larger for anything over 4,200 square feet if you use the setbacks. So with the increase, with the adjusted setbacks and the lot area, you can rebuild a structure, maximize your height, maximize your lot area, perfectly buildable lots. However, the reconstruction provision, to say you needed to build within that same footprint that you had. You have a 1-foot setback. It's less than what R4 would allow. The provision allows for you to rebuild the same structure in the same footprint. So if the city wants to allow the same structure but add a second story, that's a little bit different than what the current ILO is anticipating. I'm not giving you any really opinion on it. It's just if you want to, let's just say the scenario, you have a non-conforming dwelling that's at 50% lot area or lot coverage. Setbacks are all between 0 and 5 feet. It's a significantly non-conforming building, it's one story. So would you allow for that to be torn down, rebuilt, and put a second story on it? Is that the intent? And that's what I'm asking, because it's what you could do is you're expanding, you can significantly expand a non-conforming dwelling to something that it wasn't prior. And is that the intent? Is that what you want to support and accomplish? It makes no difference to me. This is your community. These are your constituents. But it's something that when at the council meeting, it said, the discussion was, we want to be able to rebuild the structure in the exact same footprint, same structure, same footprint. That's what this does. If you want to allow a same structure, same footprint, but higher, 2.5 stories, we have to write it that way. But I don't think that was the intent of the original provision.
Yeah, what you're describing, I live on Cecilia Lane, and what you're describing is right next door to my house. So it's a very small little cottage. I know it's non-conforming and it's one story. So I do think, like, you know, are we taking their property rights? Or I guess, yeah. I feel like if that house were to be torn down, it's not buildable. But that's one home, but it's one home.
And if you're tearing down the one story to put up a 2-story in the same footprint, it's a different building.
Yeah.
So at that point, why not just build under R4? You could build a 2.5 story building at 35 feet with a greater building envelope than currently. So it's. Hey, I'm not understanding the criticism here, but I've looked at every scenario. We are accommodating almost 100%. This is almost unheard of in zoning practice that to accommodate this. Almost 100% of the lots can be buildable and conforming with R4. We are so close. Okay, no one. Again, I'm just hearing things from the crowd. No one has given me a scenario yet that has been the counter to what I'm saying, and I would challenge anybody to do so. I've had some really good conversations with residents on different scenarios, and we've looked at different scenarios and had great conversations, and I've been able to demonstrate this. On the Malta Court lot, I'm not sure what the issue is there, right? That property right now, that house would conform with all of the setbacks for the R4 district. Yes, I have it here. I measured it before this meeting. So there's also the
and please,
folks are looking at accessory buildings as well. So I'm talking about principal structures. Accessory buildings are not subject to the same setback as principal structures. So that's another misunderstanding. Accessory structures are subject to 3-foot setbacks from side and rear property lines. That hasn't changed. That doesn't change at all. There's no restriction on that property right. It's 3 feet now. It's 3 feet proposed. So R4 doesn't change that. The property on Malta can be torn down and rebuilt under this ordinance. Can be torn down and rebuilt in the same footprint, same size. It could also be torn down and rebuilt larger under the R4. So I don't know how to debate something with someone without getting the information from, just I hear no, but I'm looking at it and I know that it can be rebuilt larger, taller in R4.
Yeah, I think we have to rely on our expert here. He's trying to. We're listening to the comments that have been made. We're trying to have a dialogue with our consultant to discuss. And what I'm hearing you say, David, is that 93% of the homes in this area, is that right? Or are
well, okay.
Please, you say it.
When you look at just the lot area and the size lot, so we could look at every single lot in every single building, but if you mathematically you take the setbacks under ILO for versus the setbacks for R4 and the lot coverage, everything 4,200 square feet or greater has a larger potential building envelope than ILO. the math flips at the point where you get to about a 41.5 by 100-foot lot. Then you start to decrease that building envelope slightly. So all of the 40 by 100 lots are actually losing 25 square feet of buildable area. So that is 7 residential lots. So those 7 are the ones that have smaller buildable area based on R4. So 25 square feet. And I mentioned there are also 2 other lots. One is 3,200 square feet and one is 3,800 square feet, very irregular as well. And those ones would be subject to a bit more restrictions, but those are so they're outliers, and we cannot plan for 100% of the lots. At some point, you'd say this is what we're zoning for. Everything else can be non-conforming, and then that's the point of a variance process. So you have a multi-frontage lot, you have multiple front setbacks, you have an irregular shaped lot. That is the point of the Zoning Board of Appeals, to consider these unique situations, and we're really going to avoid the need for probably reduce the number of variance requests overall. There's not a lot of them, but they come up from time to time. But with these new regulations, you'll probably see less need for variances, and those that are truly unique. There's a unique situation with a lot or the land. They will secure a variance. The Zoning Board of Appeals is very reasonable. It looks at the conditions, and I mean, some folks want certainty, and I understand that. But the more extreme cases, unique situations, they go to the Zoning Board, and the Zoning Board looks at them against strict standards, and if they meet those standards, variance is approved.
So to clarify, variances can be used for height?
For height?
Or no?
You can request a variance for anything. And any provision of the zoning ordinance except for a land use variance. So you can't, in a residential district, if retail building, you cannot request a land use variance to put in a retail building. But a dimensional requirement, yes. But again, the height issue, it's the reconstruction provision. It's just to rebuild the same dwelling. If you want the reconstruction provision to allow for the same dwelling but maximize the height, a different overall structure, you can do that. I'm just saying it's different than what we have now, and it's I think you should consider the impact and consider the fact that you can already build in R4.
Heather, Sandy, Regina?
I guess my question is just hypothetical on these 2.5% of lots that are losing that 25 square feet of buildable area. In the old ILO, we had a little bit more flexibility with the rear setback. Do you have any feedback on that? If we could have flexibility for those 7 lots?
Yeah, that's correct. So there's going to be a proportion, a certain percentage of those 200 lots that may have a rear setback based on their degree of nonconformity, anywhere from 20 to 40 feet. So it's going to be the ones that, based on a calculation that's very hard to explain, but once you're 25% less than the required lot area, so that's 25%, you can reduce your rear setback or any setback. So that's 7,500 square feet for RG1. So if you're 7,500 square feet, you can reduce your 40-foot rear setback to 30 feet. So see the math in my head here. This is what it takes to give you a setback for a lot, which I should just be able to say 30. But I'm doing math in my head because I've done this 100 times. So 75, you can reduce your setback down to 30 if you're 7,500 foot non-conforming lot. So lots between lower than 7,500 can down to 5,000 are going to be the lots that have setbacks anywhere from 20 to 30 feet. So lots from 5,000 square feet to 7,500 square feet. There's going to be a range of setbacks. It's going to be site specific, lot specific. For those ones, yes, some of them will have a smaller, well, the building envelope will not be as deep. but it will, to the rear, but it also will be lesser in the front. And the sides are fairly comparable. But also, there's many of the lots, really the small, 4,200 square feet all the way up to about 7,000, I believe. The lot coverage maximum, 35% in the area, is actually the more restrictive requirement than your setbacks. So you'll never be able to maximize your building envelope for most of these lots because of your lot area, lot coverage. So with that, so long story short here is that, yes, in some cases, they'll have a greater rear setback for that range of lots, but there's going to be other provisions in place that they can have the same size building envelope or even larger based on the reduced front setback and the lot area requirement, the lot coverage maximum. Last thing, I think of all the non-conforming dwellings, the rear setback I think it's more common to have non-conforming side and front setbacks than the rear setback. And then you also think of this case is, what is most important? Some privacy in the rear yard, to have some livable space there, preserve that area. And so it's also just what's the best way to design a lot?
Thank you. And I don't know if it would be helpful at all or if anybody would be in agreement, but I don't know if you have any type of example that you could show. I've had a lot of comments on like 40-foot wide, 100-foot depth lots and kind of how those calculations, is there a way to kind of show that so everybody's seeing the same thing?
I don't have anything.
You don't have anything with you? Okay.
Sketches. I have an Excel table that I use to show plugging the depth and width of a lot to show what the current footprint would be versus the proposed footprint. So if you give me any dimension lot, I could type it in and tell you what the proposed versus existing is. Happy to do the Malta example. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that might be helpful, just so everybody's on the same, just seeing the same information. I think that would be helpful, personally.
Would you clarify what you're asking, Sandy?
To take the example that we've had public comments on tonight of a specific lot, and David could walk through the existing ordinance versus the proposed ordinance changes of what those setbacks and the building envelope would look like.
Well, it just, with the,
can we go ahead and vote to approve this and put that information out there as an add-on, or would you like to see that before we take a vote?
I was just wondering if it would be helpful to have that example, because he's got he could show us the difference.
How about if we approve it and have that ready for council when they review?
That's what I would like to see. Would that meet your concerns or your suggestions, Andy?
Up to the rest of the council or the commission. I just thought if he had something handy that would be a nice comparison, just so everybody here in public comment would we all look at here. But it's going to be a lengthy thing, and it's not just I was throwing it out there for.
Yeah, and I'd also like to suggest when I have a personal concern about my property, I call the city manager and arrange a meeting. And with individuals who are concerned about their property, I always recommend ask for a meeting with Craig to go over the particulars. He is our acting zoning manager. Craig, is that right? And he, rather than hearing it from somebody else, talk to Craig. And if I understand it right, David, we're asking if you could create a model or an example that we could have put up on the Ferrisburg website that might help illustrate what we're talking about with a hypothetical that would help address some of the concerns that people have been raising.
We could do a couple examples of various lots and various shapes and lots, and I think that'd be a good exercise, at least just to show, before and after existing proposed. And then if anyone has, we referenced a few specific addresses tonight, they can email Craig. I ask the questions. I can run the scenarios and demonstrate how this would affect. Now, one of the properties we've mentioned tonight is one of those 7 that is less than 4,200 square feet. So there is a slight decrease in building envelope, but also that particular house will conform with all R4 setbacks. So.
Thank you. So I still have a few other items. I wanted to get to the short-term rental concern with ADUs. Do you have a recommended? I thought we had a proposal here that would help clarify what we were trying to do in that area.
Mr. Chairman, let me just propose language. Okay. So the current proposal for an accessory dwelling unit, it says short-term rental prohibited. An ADU shall not serve as a short-term rental unit. So the council looked at a few different scenarios. So, for instance, I think the one is if the principal dwelling short-term rental unit, can that ADU be a short-term rental unit? So right now we don't allow for ADUs. So anything, there's no non-conforming rights. So this would all be for new. So let's just say you have a current principal dwelling short-term rental. They take advantage of this new provision to build an ADU. That could potentially add more short-term guests to that site, increasing revenue and also activity. So is that a scenario that we want to prevent? And this ordinance would prevent that, so that you would not be able to do, in any case, a short-term. I think the Planning Commission's priority was to ensure that ADUs were only going to be to support housing and not short-term stays. But I think the other perspective was that someone could, let's just say they're building their house and they can take advantage of the revenue of their ADU for either a longer-term resident, or they might be able to better afford their mortgage if they can make more money as renting that out as a short-term rental. So there's also that aspect where somebody could help to support their income, pay their mortgage with the ADU as a short-term rental. They could possibly be more lucrative than if it was a long-term rental. So that was another scenario. So we were looking at these different scenarios and I think the council was more wondering, should we restrict ADUs as short-term rentals? Are there situations that would be desirable? And let's just think about those scenarios. So the two scenarios I offered in the memo, should ADUs be eligible as a short-term rental, and that's 7 days or more, if rented under a single contract with the principal dwelling. So that's principal and ADU, they're all rented together as a short-term rental. The other scenario, should an accessory dwelling unit be eligible as a short-term rental on their own if the principal dwelling is owner-occupied? That's another scenario I mentioned. Owner lives there, paying their mortgage. They want the option to both rent it long and short-term for whatever reason they choose. Or do we just want to say, no, the point of this is for a long-term resident live to rent that ADU, no exceptions?
I have opinions, but I want to look to the commission and look for other comments on these two.
I have it. The whole reason we allowed ADUs is to increase affordable housing. I've read that short-term rentals decrease rentable stock by 1 to 3%, up to 10% in a tourist area. And when you look at all the parks and the things that we have, we're becoming a tourist area. I don't think that we should allow short-term rentals and ADUs. That defeats the purpose of why we allowed them to begin with. I've never felt that ADUs are going to be a huge change agent in affordable housing, but it is a change agent for affordable housing at some level. Your kid can live, your parents can live there. If it goes to short-term rentals, you're defeating the purpose. 10% increase in short-term rentals raises long-term rent by 0.4 to 0.89%. So you're increasing price, you're decreasing amount of affordable housing, and I don't think that was the purpose of creating the ADUs to begin with.
If I can maybe reinforce what you're saying, people can still rent an ADU, but not short-term. So it could be, maybe you need a caretaker who's going to be living in there, maybe you have a son who wants to live there, or maybe you want to rent it to a teacher or a fireman who's going to live there, but not for 5 days, they're going to live there full-time. So that's what we want to see. So again,
I think I have a comment. I guess I would disagree as far as if the principal dwelling was owner occupied, because I feel like that also creates affordable housing for the principal dwelling. A lot of the houses in Ferrisburg are unaffordable for people that actually work around this area. So say they're looking to buy a house, and if they could do an ADU for a short-term rental so that they can afford to live here, they're on the property. I can't imagine that we're gonna have a property owner that's gonna share or have a short-term rental and just let the people destroy it when you're living right there. It's not like you live out of state and you're not there to, you know, making sure that your rental people are like at least being respectful to your neighbors and that. So I guess as far as having the principal dwelling owner in there, I would support having them be able to have a short-term rental. I don't know about the whole having a second dwelling for a short-term rental. I feel like that just brings in more people, which sometimes can cause more commotion for the neighbors when the owner isn't around, and then you just have more people. But I think I would support it if the owner was living in the principal dwelling and using it so that they can actually afford to live in our community.
I agree. I would, if it's owner occupied, I would be more open to that idea.
But what if they go away for the summer and then they short-term rental it? And how many times have we had people from neighborhoods come here when this wasn't even on the agenda, and they were complaining about short-term rentals and saying, please do something about it. So to me, it's just, that's not gonna, if you can't afford that house and you have to have short-term rentals to afford it, maybe you shouldn't buy that house. You know, it defeats the purpose of why we allowed them to begin with.
I think you're both right. Heather, if a property is owner occupied and you're renting out an ADU in the back, that sounds good. But as Regina says, you know, we are in Michigan and people do go away, especially in the wintertime, maybe not so much as in the summer, but you kind of, I don't know if we can say you could rent it out short-term, provided you are there during the same dates that it's being rented. Because that's the sweet thing. If the owner is right there, they're going to hear or see issues with garbage cans or loud music before anybody else does. Sandy?
So I very much see both sides of this, but I personally think a really good compromise is, you know, to have these ADUs be available as long-term rentals, because there is a housing shortage. There are people that are looking for smaller places, or they have aging family members, all of those different things. And having the rental income from a long-term rental is still going to help the homeowner in the primary dwelling. But I do think that that was our main focus of allowing these ADUs, and I think they're really great, and it's going to offer a lot more reasonable options to people who want to be part of our community.
Thank you. Good point.
My viewpoint aligns with Sandy.
Thank you. David, have we answered those two questions for you?
So what is the consensus then?
I think Sandy's point seemed to have the largest agreement.
We can vote if we need to.
Heather, are you
on that.
comfortable with what?
I mean, they can still rent it, so I guess so. Yeah, I mean, I just was hoping that they are able to get some extra income if that's what they need to be able to afford to live here.
And I think what we're saying is the spirit of what we're trying to do is to create long-term housing, not short-term housing. It's not that short-term housing couldn't also be income for people living in Ferrisburg. But at this point, I think we're trying to say the sweet spot is
What is the
longer term.
actual, like day?
Yeah,
Like
what is
what
long-term?
considers a long-term versus
Yeah,
a
because
short-term?
right here it says
anyway?
short-term rental
20
7.
There are
28
dates,
days?
aren't there, Craig, that are available for when we have a program that says how many days people can rent for short-term rentals, don't we?
Short-term is 7 to
They have to
27
be
days.
7. I'm asking what is considered a long-term then?
28 or
28.
so it still could be let them out.
Mhm.
So
So owner occupied long-term rental.
So I think we're saying no to B, and the scenario A is also a no.
And just that being said, too, one other point is they can still rent out short-term their principal dwelling. You know, the principal dwelling if they wanted to live in the ADU, I think. I mean, technically, they could rent out their principal dwelling if they lived in the ADU.
Yes.
The 40% lot coverage, I'm sorry, are we agreed on that? Okay, so we've answered the two hypotheticals. And Mr. Mayor, we want something that's going to fly with, you're on both boards. I listened to the questions about short-term rentals. I'm not sure I really understood, but I feel like we've answered the questions that were proposed to.
I don't think city council was all that interested, and I'm speaking just as one individual here. I don't believe city council was all that interested in increasing the short-term rental inventory in town. Okay?
Yep.
Just because of the fact that it's created so many problems. But the master plan guided us that we needed to increase housing, and that's what this is doing. And the state grant isn't pushing us into creating more housing. The state grant is allowing us to totally look at all of our zoning ordinances and clean them up so that we don't have such a mess and so many contradictory statements in our existing zoning. So it's a good thing. So the function of the rezoning is not just housing. It's allowing us to follow more closely our master plan, which is a great thing. I do have a couple of concerns though, and that was we talk about rebuilding homes on existing footprints citywide. How about a garage like Ann Smith was talking about on Williams, where she's got two garages that are essentially 2 foot apart, you know, two neighboring garages are 2 feet apart. What happens with that when there's a issue with an accessory building? Can you rebuild?
If there is a hazard situation,
and I understand that we all desire certainty in life, but one of the certainties with this zoning is that you always have the Zoning Board of Appeals that you can rely on. And if you're not happy there, you don't have to appeal to us, you get to appeal to the circuit court. So there are options for some certainty.
damage after, well, reconstruction after damage, so the hazard catastrophes, that applies to both the dwelling and accessory buildings citywide. So if there's a fire, windstorm, whatever it is, you can rebuild your dwelling and your accessory building
Even if I'm a
citywide.
foot off the property line, not a
Whatever
problem.
the setback is, as long as you don't cross the property.
Okay.
They can, and if they're, two accessory buildings and they're a foot apart, you could rebuild in the same, same,
City
building
council will
code
be
might
very
kick
happy to
in
hear
with
that.
Firewalls, but I mean, that's a building code issue, but. Now, just the one clarification though, currently in ILO, that only applies to the principal dwelling. So the ILO does not have a reconstruction provision for an accessory building currently. And it's not proposed to have one just because that's not a scenario that has been raised. But again, as I said, the accessory buildings are subject to a much lesser setback of 3 feet. So if they're destroyed, they can rebuild the same non-conforming area, but you could not, in the current ordinance or the proposed ordinance, you can't voluntarily tear down a non-conforming accessory building, rebuild in the same footprint. That's just another scenario that people should.
Without going to the ZBA.
Right. That's always an option.
So if the Smiths want to tear down their garage that's a foot off the property line because it's 100 years old, they can tear that thing down, and then their option would be to go before the ZBA and say, hey, we want to rebuild on the same footprint. That's their certainty.
Or move in 2 feet.
Or move it 2 feet. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, that's.
Sorry?
Or move it 2
Or
feet.
move it 2 feet.
Yeah, or move it to a line.
Because that would be a 3-foot setback on that. Okay.
So if it's over on lot coverage for rebuilding, so in our ILO R4, so we're not talking about it. So we're talking about voluntary removal or hazard. Oh, we need to know which one to answer first. Voluntary removal. So with voluntary removal, the new provisions specifically says original footprint with the same height, dimensions, and lot coverage. What I just covered before this was that there is no reconstruction provision for accessory buildings in ILO now, and there's none proposed. So you have to follow the current ordinance for accessory buildings. If they burn down or blown down, you can rebuild them in the same footprint in a year. But if it comes up that folks really want to be able to tear down a detached garage and rebuild the same footprint with the same rights as principal dwelling, that's a conversation. I'm not saying I'm for or against it. And again, I'm not saying I'm for or against anything here. I think I was given an unfair characterization that I'm pushing something. I think I'm giving you options on all of this. And that's
Thank
an
you.
option. I just want to be clear that accessory buildings in reconstruction voluntarily demolishing not have the same right as your principal, but in a hazard situation.
Rich, did you have some more?
The only other thing I was going to make mention of was the fact of some of the approvals for projects. City council felt that they should all come before city council, and that is because of the fact that we all are appointed. Whereas at city council, they're elected officials, and you can always throw the bums out if you're not happy with them. Okay, so that's why. It's not.
I'm looking at you, Richard.
I know, but it's not a lack of confidence in the planning commission. It's the fact that you need to have people that are accountable, that are electable, so that if you have to on them or throw them out.
Yep.
Feels
Makes
fair.
sense.
Is that fair?
That feels fair.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I would agree with that, but I think what we were trying to do a power grab, what we were trying to do is make things simpler. Because when I started out on the ZBA in maybe 1999, and all the years I've been involved as a council member or whatever, we have heard complaints about how complicated our approval processes are and our zoning is. And we've talked for 30 minutes about what kind of shrubs a company should put in front of their building. I mean, it gets to be kind of prohibitive, and I think that was the purpose, to try to make it simpler. And is there some other way we could do something to some of these ordinances to make it simpler? I mean, we need to look at some of these because it boggles the mind sometimes when you have architects and developers and people trying to build a house and they have to jump through so many hoops. Pretty soon, they're just about ready to give up.
Mr. Chair.
I do approve only council should make these decisions, but maybe council should look at how we can simplify things a bit.
Our initial thing that we threw, this document that we threw at city council, we all voted unanimously, which was including me, to say, hey, some of those approvals should be at the planning commission to relieve city council and to make ourselves more streamlined. I'm facing the reality of what we can get put past city council. And what city council is saying is answering those questions that David has summarized here for us. And one of them was that they wanted to have city council approval for those.
I think it's great.
I'm thrilled that we've been able to, we've worked on this for over a year now. Since the master plan was done, we've been working on this virtually word by word. And I'm thrilled that we've got down to just the nitty-gritty few issues. So it's been struggle, but we're getting there.
David, we haven't touched on the, your discussion of do we like the 40% lot coverage for R4? Could you give us a little back and forth on that?
Well, that wasn't I'd say that was toward the end of the meeting that was mentioned. It's just a concern. We didn't have I think a full conversation about that, but there's just some concern with stormwater runoff. And
if I may, real quick, and that is that mathematically looking at all the lots, the 40% coverage makes more people compliant with existing ordinances. 35 really makes a lot more lots not compliant. That's why we went with 40. Council has got the concern with, just like with the photos that Londi passed out here, council has got concerns with the high water table there and why we would increase lot coverage when we know we have water issues in that area. That's the concern.
And I think that it brings I think it really affects the eastern R4 area more than western. Eastern, there's the averages are a lot higher than western, so of West Spring Lake Road. So the 40%, looking at the averages of the blocks, like the 40% was just more in line with that area. So
about 37.5. We do have a lot of ZBA for lot coverage over there, but I can't say we've approved them all, so I don't know.
So 40% was meant to be more calming for existing homeowners, and 35 is sort of looking forward and saying that might be more appropriate if we're concerned about flooding issues. So other than splitting the difference, is there? Can you say? I think there's such a concern about the ability to rebuild. I don't know that. I mean, is it practical to say if you sell the house and can a new owner be required to do a 35%? Or
I would probably just set it for the district. I think this is the one area where the east-west distinction, I think that did justify some distinction between east and west, but ultimately we decided to consolidate into district. I think it's something to where I'm comfortable with it, it's set at 40. It's also comparable to R3, which I believe R3 also has, confirm that before I say that, but. Because R3 and R4 have the same minimum lot size, setbacks and width, so R3 and R4, and R3 already has a 40% lot coverage. So that's why, since the lots between those two, between an existing and a proposed district, we're proposing the same dimensional requirements all across the board. We just consistent with the lot coverage that R3.
Leaving it at 40? Okay. So I'm wondering, commissioners, have we answered enough questions that we are ready to make a motion to amend our document in the ways that David has created the changes reflecting the direction we've received from council?
I do have one more concern, and that is, we talked a little bit about building height. And that is, if you've got something that's non-conforming, that burns down, that's 1 story, or if somebody wants to tear it down, it's 1 story and they want to put up 2 stories, you could end up with extremely skinny buildings, and I don't know if that's what you want to see as a character in the community, in that neighborhood. And I'm talking just about the inland overlay.
But I think they can rebuild outside, like not on the original footprint, it sounds like probably, and be conforming, and then add height.
At the same
So I
height.
guess that's, yeah, that's already out there.
They can go higher if they are within their.
As long as, yeah.
And there are going to be some that I don't think they will be in that. Yeah.
I don't think it's any different than the what we used to call the Lake District overlay, which was prior to all of this. If you had a cottage in what we call the Lake District, you had to abide by the rules that everybody else did. So when they changed the rules, some of the people who had jumped through all the hoops were not very happy about that. But I think it made it better in the long run for both homeowners and the city. But look at the houses that have resulted. There are houses that were little 1-story cabins or cottages, and now they're McMansions. So does it always fit into the neighborhood? Maybe not, but that's the way of the land now. So I don't think it's something we need to be that worried about.
David, you're going to be giving us some examples of properties, a couple of good non-conforming ones that this is going to really affect, and that would be to look at the Larabells, okay, and also Ann and Dan Smith's home on Williams, is that right? Malta. And they could give you the addresses. What's the address of the Malta home? Okay, and David, you got that?
Goldman. Lakeview.
Yep.
Requiring an exit from the water.
Nicole, do you have a good address to look at?
150. The house
I know.
Jordan West.
Well, and just to clarify, that's actually the incorrect statement about the waterfront setback. So ILO does not allow for a reduction to the waterfront setback. That's not a provision. That's not a right that anyone has in ILO.
They can't have 20.
No, it's incorrect.
I think that's.
It is the RG1 setback. That's why we've had variances.
Yeah. Not 40.
That's we've had recent variance requests for properties on Cecilia for extensions and yeah, that's been within the last year or two that we have. But it is, I can reference it if you like, but the ILO provision just refers to the it doesn't give the right to reduce a waterfront setback, because that's been very clear that that waterfront setback should be maintained. In the cases that where you just don't have a building envelope, the route is to go to the zoning board for a variance.
One last thing in that regarding city council. Let's talk about garages for a minute. That Denny Dreyer was mentioning versus the side load versus the front load.
Yeah, that's been brought up a few times. This ordinance is not requiring side load. I don't even anticipate side loaded garages. What I anticipate is in most cases, you're going to have a principal building with you have lots of cases with a detached garage in the back, or you could have a front loaded garage that's just staggered backward. That's not the focal point of the house. So this ordinance is not. I don't see side loaded garages as a result of this ordinance. I see houses in accessory buildings developed in the same way that they are now, or that they're front loaded and subject to the same setback as they are right now. So it's a 25-foot setback now. You can reduce it down to 20 feet in ILO, or the average, which is down to, I guess, 12 and a half. So, but that's if your average is that way. But so we're actually not we're treating garages in the same way. We're allowing the principal part of the building to be reduced to 15 feet through this ordinance, or lower through averaging. So we're trying to draw the main part of the building close to the road, but not the front loading garage. So it's the same. It's that we're not getting any stricter on garages. It is what it is right now. And I think you'll have front loading that's staggered back, or front loaded rear garages that are detached. So that's the case where you have your 10-foot setback on one side with your driveway, 5 foot on the other. And we're talking about narrow lots at this point. And to answer the question from before, the driveway is not subject to that same setback as a principal structure. The driveway can fit within that 10-foot setback. And that's why we have that 5 minimum, 15 total, so that you can shift have your driveway on one side. But yeah, I don't anticipate side-loaded garages. It could happen.
Denny, would you care to please come forward and use the microphone?
In the previous condition, a side load garage had a 15-foot setback. A front load garage had a 25-foot setback. Does that not exist in the new one?
Yeah, there's still a different setback for the main part of the building versus the garage.
But there's a different setback for a side load garage versus a front load garage. 15 and 25. I mean, that's what it was.
It's only concerning the front setback that there's a difference. So side setbacks are going to be whatever the side setback is for the entire building.
Right. But if you have to have a front load garage, you have to push your garage back an extra 10 feet, correct?
Which is the current setback in that district. So we're drawing, it's an allowance to bring homes closer to the street, but we're not giving that same allowance to garages. Garages are staying at the same point, but the rest of the building is allowed to come forward. So you can have front loaded, staggered, or you could have, like in many scenarios, the detached garage.
Okay, but it's very difficult, especially on Cecilia, to get a detached garage.
Well, to your, I thought you brought some really good information at one of the previous meetings. So that with the average of the structures on Cecilia, so this version, every waterfront lot on Cecilia has a standardized 10-foot setback, regardless of garage or main part. So that was based on the information you had provided.
Okay.
So and that's across the board 10 feet for those because we understand, like everyone says, they're shallow lots.
Because I've got a couple jobs going on Cecilia, and the statement about a front load garage having to be 25 feet back
Yes,
is
yeah.
like,
No, we, actually, your information you provided was helpful because we made some changes based on that.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's good.
Okay.
Good. Thank you, Denny.
I do have one thing I wanted to bring up.
Thank you.
Was the apartments in the service district. Is there a way to cap how many apartments you allow in a district? If we didn't want them to take over, you know, like Nicole says, if that's our fear that they're gonna come in because it's more income, can we say that we're only allowing so many so that that doesn't happen?
We
Or
couldn't,
not?
we couldn't do that. But, I mean, there's, you could, and Nicole suggested that, so, a strategy similar to what we did with CC
Mhm.
is to simply allow for mixed-use buildings in service rather than multiple unit
Mhm.
apartment dwelling.
And I
So
think
that's an option.
we
as
did
well.
add mixed use, right? We just also added apartments, like we have both
Yes,
of them.
yes. So what we did is we struck multiple unit apartment buildings from CC, but we kept it in service.
Mm-hmm, okay.
And so you could treat service similarly to where you could prevent just an apartment building from being there. But, I mean, I think about the case of the Samaritas building. I mean, that is in Spring Lake, that is a apartment building.
Mhm.
So that would prevent something like that in the downtown area. And it would have to be a first floor retail apartments up top. So, I mean, I see that in a downtown area, it's very common to have that first floor restriction. We chatted about that early on, last year. Ultimately, at first we were going to just allow it to be, we weren't going to be as prescriptive, but then after public input, we agreed that mixed-use building made sense over the apartment building. So could you carry that to service? Absolutely. I don't think is that, like, my opinion is that it's not the priority that CC is. Service is not the priority because service is a little bit more, it's not the traditional downtown zoning district that CC is intended to be, but I also have no issues at all if you said, yeah, we're going to carry that over into service. So it's just your preference. And we did specifically talk about the townhouse issue as well. We did the visual preference exercises last year where we showed side-by-side townhouses and looked at that service as a sub-area, and it was determined that would be an okay option for service. So,
Mhm.
but you can certainly carry over that same mixed-use building concept into service if you believe that's a priority.
Yeah, I definitely like a mixed-use building. I know in Spring Lake, they just required that for the new Windsor apartments. They have a commercial space and then apartments above. So, yeah, I think that looks really nice. And it also, just like Nicole said, promotes walkability downtown if we want buildings. And yeah, I would support that.
So currently, we're allowing mixed use in service.
Yes, we do already allow it. So what?
We already require we don't allow residential on the first floor of mixed use.
Correct, by definition.
Correct.
So if you were open to a change, you would strike multiple unit apartment dwelling.
Yeah, we're allowing both.
We allow for multiple
So-
unit apartment dwelling in service and mixed use building. So you would strike multiple unit apartment building so that it could only be mixed use. If that's your direction.
I'm leaning that way, but I guess
10 or 20 years down the road, when a developer is thinking about it and they want to put an apartment building there rather than mixed use, they can always come and toss the idea at us. Or at you guys, I won't be here.
It was worth talking about because that area has had a lot of, not development, but a lot of people putting money and making it look really nice.
Yeah, I can see mixed use.
So been suggested, and there's some support to, help me, where are we striking the,
Multiple unit apartment dwelling. Consider whether or not that's
Service.
appropriate for service.
service? You want to take it out of service?
I'm just encouraging that so that we keep the service. They can still have livable space above it. Shouldn't be, I mean, I wouldn't mind if we could say we can only have a couple apartment places, but if we can't say that, and that could be a likelihood that those could all end up being apartments someday and not have any service there. Is that what we want? I don't know.
It's fine with me, but I want to get us to consensus, so
I'm fine with striking that, and if council has different opinions, then they can make that decision.
so David, let's make that change part of the draft that we will be voting on. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay.
And some of these things, like the issues that we've been discussing tonight, these are also things you could come back and look at in a year from now. Got a punch list of small items, and yeah, I think these are things, as you review development and you get proposals and you think more about this, and ordinances change. So I think the priority was to get the framework in for the housing effort, and tweaks can be made in future years.
Good. Regina, Sandy, any other tweaks before we put this to a vote? Gordon, Connor, are we good? Can we have a?
I was going to just mention one more thing, just because there were public comments concerning that rear setback, and I did make comments about the range from 20 to 30 feet for that rear setback in R4. If it is a concern, if it would help satisfy concerns, you could also consider dropping that to 25 for lots under 7,500 square feet. Because that's the point where that rear setback does decrease currently under 30 feet. So, if it would make it more palatable or more accepted by the community, I think that 25 feet would be a good compromise for smaller lots in R4. I mean, I think it's mentioned, I was comfortable with 30, but I'm not going to advocate one way or the other. And if there's a reduction in that rear setback, I don't think that would have a negative impact, and it might satisfy some concern.
Be good with that.
I'd be good with that too.
Anything that would make what we're trying to do make people more comfortable with what we're trying to do. So I think that's we're good with that.
It would give the building envelope would be larger, but ultimately you also have lot coverage that comes into play too. But it would just give a little bit more flexibility on that site, how to ship forward, ship back. So I think it would allow for a higher comfort level.
Good. Motion?
Well, what I'm going to say is we've really worked very hard on this, and we've tried to accommodate everyone's ideas. We've been open to change. It's not easy to embrace change. We didn't just do this with a charge from council. We didn't do it for a state grant. We did it because we reviewed the master plan. We went months reviewing the master plan. For that, we had a survey. We had an open house. One of the things that came forth was we'd like more affordable housing. Now, the master plan does not have force of law. It's visionary. Ordinances have force of law. So when council said, you have to put this vision into action, that's why we started reviewing everything for affordable housing. And so I'm going to move that we adopt an ordinance to amend the city code by amending chapter 154 zoning to amend provisions related to residential land uses, review processes, and development requirements for
residential land uses as well as other standard matters, and to amend the official zoning map of the city of Ferrisburg.
Second.
Just to clarify, that's a motion to recommend to city council to adopt.
Okay, do I
Yes.
have to say this all again, or can we just?
No, just wanted to clarify that.
With the amendments that we made tonight. Okay.
Second by Heather. Discussion?
Part of the discussion, just to clarify, the two changes then, one was we're striking multiple unit apartment dwelling from S, and we're reducing the rear setback for R4 for lots under 7,500 square feet from 30 to 25. Understand those are the only two.
Well, also, we're sticking with the 40% maximum lot coverage in R4, and the two ADU STDs, excuse me, short-term STRs, to the extent that that needs to be clarified, so the council knows we responded to them, that would be.
Yes, we can explain, but there's no change to the text. That stays as is based on your consensus, but we'll explain the reasoning for.
Okay. Craig, can we just, do we need to vote by name or just?
You're going to do roll call, or else you can just do a voice
vote?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. So that passes. So thank you, everybody who came out tonight. I would like to say that you might find the work session that's coming up of interest. It's a discussion of the question of abutting lot record of under single ownership. David, would you, I don't know if everyone has seen your memo on this, but I think it was a very, very well done memo outlining the issues that the current ordinance put us in. But I'd like you to take us into that.
Sure. So this is currently there's a provision in the zoning ordinance concerning non-conforming lots, and it's really two-part. One is that if you have a non-conforming lot, there's nothing that prevents the development of that lot. You can place a building on it as long as you meet all other requirements. So that's really just clarifies that just because your lot's not conforming, you can still use it. Because lot area and lot width really only relate to when the land division process or a boundary line adjustment. That's when we're really confirming compliance with minimum area and minimum lot width. But so we have a number of non-conforming lots, so throughout the city you can build on them. The question comes up a lot in many communities. My lot's not conforming. Is it buildable? So, sure, if you can meet all of their zoning requirements. So that's the first part. The second part is an automatic joining provision that requires that if you have a non-conforming lot, abutting non-conforming lot or more by the same owner, you have to combine them. So if, let's just say an owner owns two non-conforming lots, they touch, they're abutting, they have to be treated as one for zoning purposes. If they have three lots, let's just say one is non-conforming and the other two are conforming, the ordinance says you have to combine all three into one buildable lot. So that's the second part of this section. Is first, it's just saying, sure, you have the right to build on a non-conforming lot. That's pretty accommodating. That's a good thing. Second, but if you have more than one, and at least one of them is non-conforming, you have to combine them all. So we're taking away the rights of two or more developable sites that if they were all under separate ownership, they could all be developed. Just because you own two or more, they have to be combined for this ordinance. Now the automatic joining provision is something that has been upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court, but that case, it's out of Wisconsin. That was really more if both of the lots were non-conforming, both were substandard. So the city's ordinance goes a bit further than that. It says if one is non-conforming, at least one, then they all must be combined. So it's something that I'm not sure if it would hold up in the courts based on the mirror case in Wisconsin. Because that's the same. It does make sense to some degree that communities, and you'll see this a lot, the automatic joiner for substandard lots. But once you start adding on conforming lots, I think you're getting away from the findings of that case. I think that there's certainly some reason for combining extremely non-conforming lots. I think communities have that joining provision for a reason when cases when it's seen as a true negative. But in our case, I don't know if it's really a positive, especially in light of this whole effort. I mean, we are recognizing smaller lots in certain areas. We're recognizing the need to support housing and people's rights to develop land. So I think the ordinance as written too, it concerns me because just because one is non-conforming, you have to combine, but there could be another scenario. It's where you have one conforming and one non-conforming. A boundary line adjustment in some cases could make them both conforming, but this ordinance says they have to be combined. So there's other scenarios that I don't think are fully envisioned. I've given you 5 examples here that I can see the one where you have 2 extremely non-conforming lots. Maybe there's some justification for that, but based on our efforts, maybe it's easier just to not include that. And then, like, if you have 3 non-conforming lots in a row, which there are some. I did notice one today. There is an owner with 3 lots, and they are not conforming to RG1. So that would be a case where why not a lot? Like, why does it have to be 3 into 1 when you could do 2 into 1 and possibly have 2 conforming lots? So that'd be a kind of a middle ground approach. But I guess the most accommodating is just let them have the 3, because if they were separately owned, they could all be separate building sites. So that's my kind of my most accommodating perspective on it. The other thing is enforcement. It is from a zoning perspective. If you have 2 lots and they want to build on one, or they want to pull 2 permits, the city could say, well, we're only going to give you a permit for 1. That's a way of enforcement. But there's other situations where it's difficult to prevent the selling of a lot. So let's just say someone owns multiple lots, one's not conforming. They could sell one. They hear this conversation, they sell one tomorrow. That's pretty difficult to prevent that from happening. So some jurisdictions will actually take inventory of all their non-conforming lots and then file that on actually the deed of the property. Like there's ways that communities are doing this, but it's complicated. There has to be a legal instrument to be able to enforce it, and it's just probably more than you want to get yourself into. Personally, it's not something that I really enjoy doing. I've had to enforce this in a different community when someone just simply bought a lot next door. They wanted to build a cottage. I said, well, you bought it. You can expand your own house, but you can't build a secondary house. And so I actually had to enforce this in another community just by denying a building permit. So is that something that we want to get into here or continue? Or we just want to say, these are not conforming lots. You can build on them if you can meet zoning standards.
I understood the thrust of this was to say, instead of requiring merging non-conforming lots owned by the same party, we could consider making it optional or not mandating it.
Yes, yeah, and someone can at their option can combine non-conforming lots to make them more conforming, or just a more reasonable building site. I mean, there are actually some cases in R4, proposed R4, where someone has a single building site, but there's like they have 2 lots, and one's kind of a sliver, really unbuildable, but they're not combined. So, I mean, in that case, it might make sense for them just to combine it voluntarily, or they might just want an oversized lot with a larger yard or greater setbacks, more privacy, larger house.
Tonight is just a work session. We're going to come back to this at a later date. So given the time Any further discussion on this? I think that, David, that was a great,
Yeah.
So, so directions for the work session, would you just like to see some different, like, I gave some hypothetical examples, but I could also show show lots or do some sketches, and is that something that you might want to see just as part of this? Or just further discussion?
I think if somebody wants to have 2 non-conforming lots, so be it. But
Yeah.
I don't think that we have any place to force them to do anything.
That's what I say.
I think that's the direction that your memo spelled it out pretty clearly to me, that this was maybe overreach by the city to compel people to merge the property, and it goes against the thrust of what we're trying to do, to have small homes built on small lots.
So if that is the direction, all this ordinance would be separate than our other effort, but it would be a new ordinance to strike section 1020B. Now that will be 1120B if the new ordinance passes before this. So and then 1020 or 1120, I would just combine that until you wouldn't have an A or B at that point. It would just be 1020 non-conforming lots. And you would recognize the ability to build on a non-conforming lot and have none of the provisions concerning joining that. You really just be a striking and getting rid of the subsections 8.
Yes.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Is that something you would like to set a public hearing on?
Yes, yes, I think that would be good. Next meeting, Craig?
Yes.
Okay. That brings us to item 12, presentation applicants for appointment to the Planning Commission, Jordan Weber and Sandy Tuggle. We have a motion and support. Second. From Heather. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same. I guess we've moved to recommend to the mayor the appointment of these 2 individuals. A second call for public comments.
Tom Cash, 17838 Short Street. On your next 3 agenda items, please discuss the cell phone tower.
We are.
Any further comments? Zoning administrator report?
No report?
Chairman report. I had a call with the cell phone company consultant today because I was wondering myself what's happening. They tell me they are working on it, but they haven't had a quick solution. So it is dragging out longer than we expected. But they tell me they're still trying to find a property owner in the area that we designated for cell phone towers. So hopefully we'll hear something soon on that. Secondly, the mayor and I attended a kickoff for the Heart Safe initiative. This is to make, working with Spring Lake and in Grand Haven and Ferrisburg, we're trying to increase the number of people who know how to do CPR and are comfortable working a defibrillator. And the goal is to reduce the number of fatalities from heart attacks by increasing the number of people who can respond appropriately to save lives. So that was it's a beautiful thing that the City Council recently passed a statement of support, and we're seeing it come into fruition. Individual commissioner reports.
No report.
I would just like to throw out there the idea of, at some point, having a discussion and taking a closer look at our language that we might have in our zoning ordinance in regards to data centers and if there's anything else we can do to just put the protections in place for our community in regarding data centers.
Yes, Craig, David, there was a letter on this topic, and I think most of the commissioners chimed in that this is something we'd like to discuss at a future meeting.
I agree with Sandy about the data centers.
Connor?
No report, thank you.
No report. No report.
I'd just like to give a plug for the Recreation Commission that we are doing our summer concert series again. That was quite a hit last year. It'll be on the third Wednesday of June, July, August, and September. The food trucks start at 5:30. The band usually goes until about 8. I think the band starts at 6. And we'd love to see everyone there. Oh, sorry, William Ferry Park, our nicely renovated, I think the construction, we're good.
Yep.
Yes, William Ferry Park.
Our next meeting will be July 2nd.
Your face.
No fair going on holiday.
Past Julys, we've maybe made accommodations to see if they're available.
Oh, well, could, Craig, how can we handle this if you're suggesting we skip the July meeting, Sandy?
No, I'm just thinking back. I think there have been certain Julys where our planning commission meeting has fallen really close to the holiday and we perhaps rescheduled. I'm not saying cancel, but I think there have been certain holidays that has been
Craig,
appropriate.
Could we wait until it gets closer and then?
The only thing that's pending right now is the discussion on the data centers and the combining of lots. So those are not time sensitive, so.
Okay, so if nothing more serious comes in, we'll consider postponing the July meeting.
I would agree with that.
Okay. All right. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone in the audience. Thank you for serving me again.
You're getting home late. Where are you going?
Oh, yeah, she goes, when are the things starting back up?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.